Hey everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you are all doing well. We are quickly approaching Valentine's Day, and for some of you, that might mean making special DIY gifts or home decor for parties. For others, it's just making a sweet card for someone that you love or someone in your family. It might be for others celebrating Valentine's Day, which I certainly have done with my friends in the past. And for others of you, it might be working with your kids to make their Valentines for their classroom celebrations. Either way, we need ideas, right? So that's the whole point of this video today. I'm going to go through a bunch of different ideas, things that you can do for cards, for Valentine, like quick and easy Valentines that you can do with your kids, and also some ways that you can just make your sweet treats a little bit more festive, we'll say. So I'm going to go through a bunch of different ideas through all kind of covering all those things we were talking about, but I really wanted to kind of start out by saying I am going to be using chapter 1 dies, but I'm also a huge proponent of trying to use what you already have in your stash. And I'm a big fan of essential shapes. So whether those be flowers, hearts, circles, squares, any kind of die that is a basic shape that I feel like you can use all throughout the year, it's something I like to incorporate into my makes. Because you might already have some of this stuff at home and you can get making right away. And if you don't, these are a really good kind of indicator of what, as a maker, I like to have around me all the time just to make my making journey a lot easier, we'll say. I'm going to be focusing in on florals and hearts, obviously because of Valentine's, but I really foresee these being able to be used throughout the year, whether it's for Mother's Day, birthday, wedding, baby showers, whatever you might say. These shapes work for a multitude of occasions, not just for Valentine's Day. So let's get right into what I'm going to be making, and let's have some fun, festive fun with Valentine's. So the first kind of projects I'm going to work through are using some of our essential shapes. I'm going to be using 2 dies in particular. One is a Bigs die, and I love having a really nice floral Bigs in my stash. This one is Flowers 3D, which is 656. 545, and this one is a rolling flower, which I am going to demo, so I'll do that shortly. I love having the Bigs option because I can do these out of felt and sculpting foam, and you could do it out of crepe paper, but the crepe paper won't really work well with a rolling flower, we'll say. But cardstock is a big one. So let's say you're wanting to do something really quick, really fun, and have it be something that you can cut a lot of at the same time. So let's say you were making a bunch of different things for friends or coworkers, or you're helping your kids with something for a Valentine's Day classroom. The nice thing with the Bigs die is that you can cut through multiple layers of a surface. So that's a really nice option when you're having to do bulk making of any kind. You can cut through easily 6 to 7 sheets of cardstock. You can cut through a couple layers of felt all at once. So it makes your making time kind of condense in space, we'll say, because you're not spending all that time cutting them out individually. So that's a big reason I like to have a Bigs die on hand, especially for a shape, which I think you'll be as in love with this project as I am, because I really want to give it to somebody. I spent enough time making it that it's worth sending to somebody. The other shapes I love our nested shapes. I have every single one of them at my house, and I have every single one of them at my desk at work, and I use them every single day. So I'm going to be working with our hearts. These are our framelits. They're 657, 561 if you're interested, and these are great in that you get something from really small to fairly large, and I have a second video coming out with more kind of Valentine's ideas, and I will be showing you how I used this to make a mini album. So be on the lookout for that. But the first thing I want to show you is what I did with these 2 dies that you can make a really beautiful floral heart card. So the trick to this first card is really learning how to build your own card bases and use those essential shapes that you might already have. And if you don't, these 2 that I'm showing today are probably 2 of my favorite essential shapes because I use them all the time. So before we get started, I wanted to show you the card itself. Now, this was a labor of love. As you can tell, it actually didn't take me as long as I thought it would, but it does require a lot of intricacy. But what I loved is because I used my Bigs die to cut all the flowers, I was able to cut all of these flowers in probably about 6 to 7 passes, because I could cut through multiple layers at once. And that is the beauty of a Biggs die when you're having to cut multiples of a shape. I literally could just layer up the cardstock and cut through them all at the same time. So I don't like to do more than like 5 sheets of cardstock personally. Depending on the thickness of your cardstock too, that will also be will determine how many you can cut through nice and smooth and clean. But I find you can do 3 to 5 no problem typically, because these are rolling flowers. And by rolling flowers, I mean this. They come out in a shape like this, which I'll show you shortly how to put those together. You want to be, it's got some delicate like little corners, so you might want to go with, especially if you're using a heavier cardstock, you're going to want to go with something a little less, in maybe do like 3 to 4. But still, instead of having to cut out each one of these individually, I can cut them in under, let's say 7 to 10 passes if you're using less cardstock. But it's worth it to me because they're cut, and then I can just start rolling them and gluing them down onto my cards. So I love a good flower. But what I really wanted to show was how you can use essential shapes to create your own card bases. So I used the cutting on the fold technique for creating this card base. I'm going to demo really quickly what that looks like in case you've never done it before. So I've taken a piece of cardstock and fold it in half, and on the fold, you can see I've already taped mine in place. I've placed my largest of the nested heart shapes, and I've made sure that the blades at the arcs of the 2 top portions of the heart are just slightly over the edge of the fold. So I'll hold this up a little bit closer, but you can see that I've got a little bit of gap between the blade right here and then the top of the fold of the paper. And then because I don't want this moving while it's going through the machine, I've taken some of our maker's tape, which is very low tack and won't destroy my card. And I'm going to use that to kind of just hold it down while I am running it through the machine so it doesn't wiggle around, especially because I want this to be a really solid card base. So you can see that it's cut through, but the beauty of this, stuck on my little tape in the front, so let me just peel those off. But what it's done is created a nice fold card. So you can really do this with any shape, a star, an oval, a square. All you have to do is just make sure that the blade is just above where the fold is. And then what you're going to want to do, because you'll see on this that you can't see the fold from the front because I've covered it. But what I've also done is I've cut out that same shape again, and then I will glue that same shape on the front so that it looks like a full heart instead of having these straight edges. So I'm going to grab a piece of paper so I can show you what that means instead of just describing it. And I'm just using colors I have here on hand because this card took me a while to make, but I feel like people that genuinely value cards, and I'm one of them, I have little kind of keepsake boxes at my house, and I keep all handmade cards for starters, but I also keep anything that someone's written a really sentimental kind of messaging inside. And I feel like these kinds of cards that are more in depth like this, I would only send out to my friends that I know really treasure sentimental kind of cards. So this isn't necessarily a card for everyone because you do have to put a little bit of time into it, but it is a card that I know I would put in my keepsake box. So save it for that special somebody that'll treasure it. But then yeah, I would just glue this on top, and then that way the front of my card is a nice solid shape instead of having that straight line across. Then I would start to put my flowers on. Now, I'm going to show you quickly how to assemble the flowers. I'm not going to show you how to cut them just because it's a simple cut, but I am going to show you how you put them together. I would recommend having some hot glue on hand, only because it'll make, especially if you're doing a lot of them like this, it'll make that process go by pretty quickly because hot glue tends to dry a lot quicker than
liquid adhesive does sometimes. So I've got my hot glue gun here over on the side. I'm just going to pull it in real quick. And I've already cut out one of the 3D florals. And then I'm going to grab a pair of tweezers. I'm using my reverse action tweezers because I like how it grips the end, and then I can just kind of roll it all in on itself. So you'll notice you have got this straight edge at the far end. All you're gonna do, I always forget how so if you've got textured paper on one side and smooth on the other, depending on what you want on the outside or the inside, like I like my texture to show on the inside on something like this. So I want to roll it the correct way. So I need to roll it this direction so that it will roll to the inside of itself. So I always gotta do this in my head first, but I've put the end of it in between the tweezers right there. And now I'm just gonna roll it in on itself. One thing I do wanna note is as you're doing this, I like to kind of keep it tight because it is going to unwind a little bit, but you also want to try to keep it so that you don't have to rush it through. You wanna keep it so that you're gonna have a fairly even portioning at the bottom, so that when you go to glue it at the end, all the pieces at the bottom will kind of line up nicely. So you might have to, push them in to get that nice circle, especially as you get towards the end, but just go nice and slow, keep it very tight. So I've got here to the end, and then this portion at the end is just a nice circle, and that's where I usually like to apply the glue, is right there, so that I can then place the rest of it on top. So I'm just gonna finish winding this up after showing you that. And then I will usually pull it off the tweezers before I go to glue it. And I'll push it nice and firm between my two fingers right there. And then I'll place the glue right here on that circular end. And this whole thing, you are gonna let it kind of unwind a bit, depending on how tight you want the flower or how loose you want it. But I just like to hold it firmly in place between two of my fingers until the glue has really had a chance to grip the paper. And then I will like peel the layers out and add some texture to them, crinkle some up. But usually I'll start peeling away, making it look a little bit more dimensional. You can also let this really loosen up and not be as tight so that the flower looks a little bit more open, like an open rose or something like that. But I'll just go in once it's nice and tight. Now you'll see I started doing that within 30 seconds. You don't have to wait for the glue to dry for very long. But then when you're done, you've got these beautiful flowers, and then you can just go on and add them to your card. So what I recommend is starting with each color, doing all the colors for one, and then gluing them on in place. And then that'll kind of determine how many you want to make of another. So on this one, I'm going to start at the bottom here and just put a little bit of glue. And then I will just start with the one. And what's nice is then I know, okay, I want to do 2 to 3 right here. So I'll do 2 and then I'll do 3. And you can just kind of, you can eyeball it like I did on this one where I was just like, I'm going to make a bunch. Or you can really be strategic and be like, okay, the next one's going to be 2, the next one's going to be 3, the next one's going to be 4, and just work your way up that way if you prefer. But that is how you can make a really lovely, intricate floral card. And then on the inside, you can just cut out from a smaller nested shape another heart. And then I've used our new variety sentiments from chapter 1. There is a love you in there, and I just put that on with a little bit of glue, and I have a nice lovely card to give to somebody. You could also make an envelope out of another heart and slide it in, or you can just attach it to a thing of flowers or a gift itself. It is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, this other floral card I want to show you is using our new chapter 1 die boho bouquet from Lisa Jones. So this is what it looks like. You can see you get these lovely stems and nice flowers. But I, going along with the trend of flowers, was like, okay, I still want to do a heart-shaped flower, but I don't want to do something that takes a lot of time. And I am someone that when I'm cutting for another project, I tend to overcut so that I have more to play with. And that means I've got a lot of pieces laying around, a lot of die cuts that I keep. And so this next card is inspired by your scraps. So these were all flowers I had lying around from another project I was working on. And what I did is I took this framelit shape and I placed it down on the card. Now I'm gonna see if I can get this back in, but I already took it out, so might not be able to do that. But basically what I did is I laid the framelit shape down on the card, and then I started gluing the flowers down inside of the shape. And then when I was done, I removed the framelit. So the framelit gave me this perfect heart shape and almost acted as a kind of a guideline for me. And I was able to lay it down, and you could tape it down in place if you wanted to with some of maker's tape, but I didn't feel the need to. I just laid it down flat on the card. And then I glued the flowers in. I sculpted them before I put them on. So I used our paper sculpting toolkit, which I have right here. I use the gray molding mat. And with smaller flowers, I tend to use our 8mm and 5mm stylus tools. I used these, whoops, something fell. I used these two things to kind of give them a little bit of dimension, which you can see that these aren't laying flat. I've given them some nice shape and made them feel a little bit more textured. And then I went back in and added into some of the bigger florals. I went in and added some little jewels. And at the bottom here, I stamped a sentiment called You're One of a Kind. And that is from this stamp sentiment set from Jess Slack. And this one's got like a lot of floral things, but I found some of these sentiments work perfectly for Valentine's. But again, these could be cards that you can transfer to everyday kind of use. They don't have to be just for Valentine's Day. I could send that to a friend on their birthday. I could send this out as a thank you from a shower, or just as like, I'm thinking of you. So while I have geared them towards Valentine's, they don't necessarily have to be just for Valentine's.
Now, let's say you want to have a little fun with the types of materials and surfaces you're using on your cards. I wanted to see how I could incorporate crepe paper, and specifically, I've really been loving crepe paper fringe. So kind of cutting it down, making it look almost like a piñata. So I'm going to show you some different ways that you can use crepe paper on your cards.
These next two projects were inspired by my desire to kind of find alternate uses for crepe paper. I love crepe paper and I love making crepe paper flowers. And that's a hint for my next video about Valentine's Day. We're going to be doing something really fun with crepe paper. Actually, a couple of fun things with crepe paper. So I wanted to incorporate what I'm doing in the next video with a little something in this video. And one thing that I really was loving and seeing for inspiration was like piñata hearts and piñata style things. So I made piñata style cards using our crepe paper. So I wanted to show you the 3 crepe paper options we have. We've got 3 different sets, and the reason I wanted to show you is all 3 is they come with different kind of hues in each. So this one is really beautiful, bold, vibrant colors. Got really rich colors. This one's called Color Splash, which makes sense for that. But you'll see you've got these 3 kind of really vibrant pink colors over here, and then you've also got this really nice mulberry color. This one is called Vintage, and the colors are a little bit more muted. You got some oranges. I pulled a number of the crepe paper. I pulled like these 4 that I use on the card. I pulled 4 of them from here. And then the last colors I pulled were from this one called Serenity. So you get those nice purple hues in this one, as well as those 2 lighter colors. So I've mixed 2 of my packs together. I've used the Vintage and the Serenity in these makes. So I just wanted to point those out. And what's nice is our crepe paper comes 12 by 24, so you get a lot of crepe paper And you'll see you don't really need a lot to make these cards. So what I did is I cut the crepe paper down in strips, and I wasn't really sure how much I was going to need. So I think I cut these ones a little too large personally, but I knew I wanted to go with like fun, kind of vibrant, funky colors. And you'll see like a lot of these projects I'm working with like tones of pink and orange and purple. And I've tried to carry that throughout all the projects so you can see how for a party, you might be able to incorporate all different elements into some area of the party. So this one, I can't wait to show you what we do in the next video with the crepe paper. I'm really excited to show that, so be on the lookout for that. But this one, I just cut them in. I kind of gauged the size of my hearts and made sure that my crepe paper would go across. So you're going to want to measure the heart that you choose to do this with. And then just cut your strips of crepe paper long enough that they would cover from one end to the other. You're going to trim them down with scissors as you go through. But again, this is another one where you can use hot glue. I prefer to, just because it makes the process that much quicker. But if you're someone who wants to take your time, you can also use liquid adhesive with this. For the sake of just showing you what we're doing, I'm going to use hot glue. So you'll see I've got a bunch of colors here, and I've got them in strips, and you can go whichever way you'd prefer on putting these on. But I just do basically one strip at a time. So I'm going to start here at the bottom. And you'll notice I'm going to do this one twice because I want it to layer on the heart. And you don't have to worry about this showing because you're going to cover that up. So I'll lay one down just so I've got that bottom edge, and then I trim it from behind. And you're going to want a nice pair of clean scissors to trim from behind. Now, if you feel like you've got too much extra, you can even just trim that off. Keep it smaller, but it's no big deal. So I like just having that little piece at the bottom covered. Then I'll go back over it with another layer. And this one, I want to make sure that my fringe is kind of lining up so that I've got those extra layers. And again, just going to cut it from behind. And then that way you can kind of keep building it up as you go. Now I want to switch to a different color, and you can go back in and you can cut off excess. I cut these ones too tall. I think I cut these like 2 inches. I actually think I would keep them to under 1.5 inches personally, just having done the first one. And then I was like, oh, these are a little thick. So I would cut them down just a little bit more. So I want to go to this purple, and you'll notice I'm just placing the glue directly above where the other one ends. And then that way I can kind of line up the fringe, and it doesn't matter where it sticks because my fringe is going to not be glued down. And I cut the fringe up. I literally just eyeballed these. I'm going to show you another one in a second, how I actually cut the fringe. But with most of this, I just was like, I'm going to eyeball it. I'm not someone who needs everything to be precise. If you are, just get a ruler out and you can cut up against the ruler. But something I like to do once it's glued down and nice and sturdy and held in place is I like to go back and pull up the fringe so that it makes it more textured like that. So you just keep going up until you get to, you know, your full piece. And then what's nice about this is you can just add it to a card front. So right here, and then just add it to a card front. And if you want, you can add somebody's name to it or just add like a quick little sentiment across, or you can just leave the card as is because it's just beautiful on its own. But you don't have to do just the big hearts, and you don't have to do multiple layers. You can also just do a small heart and do the same color and over. So I wanted to show you one where I'd cut a strip, and this is how I like to cut my fringe. I fold them in on themselves like this, and then I only have to cut a few pieces instead of down the whole length of it. And because I'm not folding on that hard edge, I don't have to worry about any lines or anything like that. And I just go in and cut the pieces that are folded and lickety split. you have this really long fringe done in a matter of seconds. So that's my little tip for these, is you definitely don't need to spend a lot of time cutting the fringe part, especially if you're not someone who it needs to be exact measurements. Just eyeball it and kind of go from there. You also don't have to cut off after each one. If you want to go fast and then just cut off at the end, you can do that. So I'm going to show you how quick you can actually put just one of these together. I'm just cutting off the extra so that I can keep going my way up the heart. And what's nice is like you can play with colors. You don't have to do traditional Valentine's colors even. And you just want to make sure that your fringe has room in between. I'm going to go to that next layer. This is my thing. Like, it's it's a really cool way to create texture on the card. And you can use this with crepe paper. If you maybe you have extra crepe paper laying around from a birthday party even, like upcycle that. Use that crepe paper, cut your strips, cut the fringe the way you want it to be, and then you can make it with that. So even if you don't have crepe paper lying around like for flower making, maybe you have it lying around in rolls from like a birthday party or something like that, like a streamer. You can totally use those as well. So we're getting towards the top. And now I really want this one nice and bulky. I don't know, I'm obsessed with streamers and really textured cards at the moment, so I'm having fun making these. This one I might have to do a second layer, but I'm just going for it right now. The top part is a little tricky, but you might just have to do a couple layers on top of each of them to get that perfect shape. And it looks a little weird right now because I haven't cut off the excess. But in a matter of like under 2 minutes, I've got this fun little element ready to go. I'm gonna flip it over, cut off, just follow the outline of the heart. I find it's easier too if you just cut in kind of angled shapes around the heart. So then you get those nice, especially when you're on the curves, just cut keep cutting towards the edge. Okay. And then do the other side. And if you mess up and cut off a little bit like I just did, you're not really going to notice from the front side. It's the beauty of a textured card, kind of covers up anywhere that you've messed up. This is the hardest part to cut right here. But once you get that one done, then the rest are easy peasy. And then you can go to the front, start peeling them up, get that nice movement going in. If you want more movement, you can go back in and cut more fringe, make it smaller so it's not as thick. Or if the pieces are too wide and you don't like that, just go in and cut up more layers. But realistically, you just want to pull that up, give it that nice, fun texture, play around with it, get it moving, and then you kind of flatten it out a little bit. Then I just took this same exact thing, basically, and popped it on a simple card front, put some alphanumeric from Tim on there, alphanumeric bold, I should say, and just kept it really simple. But you can do this in any color you wanted. And then you have this nice alternate use for any of the crepe paper you have lying around. You can make these cards really quick and out of lots of different colors and just have fun with it.
Okay, next up on our journey through Valentine's, we're going to take a look at what you can make with your kids. Now, I am someone who remembers as a child having those little shoe boxes on your desk and everyone would go around and put all their Valentine's treats in. Not really sure if that's what the kids are doing these days, but I know that they are still doing Valentine's Day exchanges. So I wanted to show you some fun little things that you can turn into Valentines that your kids can help you make, and they're quick and easy.
These next ones, I was really inspired by Pete's new collection of items. He came out with some stamp thinlet sets that have great puns on them. So I'm gonna see if I can show this. You've got this one that says cool chick with a little chick, sending hedgehogs with the hedgehog, love you so much with the sheep. This one's called Crazy Creatures #1. Then he also came out with these ones called Crazy Characters. And this one's You're Just My Type with the typewriter, Love You a Latte with the coffee teacup, and Love You So Much with the thimble of thread. I love puns. I love puns. They're one of my favorite things to do, but these also, just because of the nature of them being a little bit more illustrative and cartoonish, they immediately made me think of how adorable these would be for kids' Valentines. So then I got to playing around. I was like, when I did Valentines, we would always have a little pocket and then you'd attach a candy to it or something like that. And when I saw Eileen's new release, the library pocket with the ATC card and tabs, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm going to make little kind of library cards to stick into the pocket and that say cool chick, and then all you have to do is add a lollipop or a little chocolate behind, and you can actually use the tabs to have the tab over here and then stick the lollipop in. But I just wanted to do cute little, how adorable are these? I'm obsessed with them. And so I just made a couple of cute little Valentines. I'm going to show you how I made these and how quick they are to make too. Granted, I've put one of these together already to cut down for the sake of the video, but I think I made all 3 of those in 30 minutes. So not a lot of time, because a lot of it is just the base shape and then a few little decorative elements. So you're going to use the library pocket from Eileen. And what is great about this is it's a 1-step cut, and then you've got your pocket. So I'm cutting this out of our mint julep cardstock. Again, I went with really fun, bright kind of tones because I don't know if you know by now, I'm kind of I'm not into traditional stuff. I like finding unique color palettes and fun ways to put things together just to save time, because I've already got it nice and hot. I'm going to use my glue gun, but when I made these, used regular liquid adhesive. So you'll see that there is some score lines here. So I'm just going to fold all my score lines. There's only 3, the 2 little tabs to create the pocket and the 1 to create the fold to make the pocket. And I'm going to add ever so gently just a small little dash of hot glue and push those together. So you've got your nice little pocket right here. Then you also get a piece. I thought I brought the die in with me, but I don't think I did. But then you get a piece in there. It's right here that cuts the library kind of piece right here, or the ATC card, I should say. And then I went into Pete's Crazy Creatures and Crazy Characters, and I'm going to pull these out so that you can see how they've done this, or how he's designed this. So I pulled the typewriter out, and what's nice about each of these is that all of the pieces for that shape are on one die. So I've put together the typewriter, and the only other pieces I had to cut out were the eyes, the cheeks, all of that, which are all optional, and they all come on one die as well. So that's really easy to put together. It cuts them all out at the same time. So if you want to cut through multiple colors at the same time, I just stuck with black and white for the eyes, and you can cut out a bunch of those all at once, and then it makes the putting it together process a lot easier. So what I did, just to make them a little bit more bold, is you can also add the stamping part right here. I don't know if I have my stencil tool back here, my stamp and stencil, so I might have to just use a regular one. But you can, some of these are a little bit longer sentiments, so I actually don't think I'll be able to stamp it onto this one, but the Cool Chick and Love You a Latte definitely fit because I've done those. But some of these are much longer sentiments. So I would just recommend pulling out your stencil and stamp tool and stamping the sentiment on. If you don't have that, you can also just stamp them on with a nice little acrylic block. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and I'm going to glue this on. And I love that these are just really bold shapes, so they speak for themselves. You don't need to decorate anything else. Just cut the shape out and glue it in place. Stamp your little sentiment on there, tuck a piece of candy in, and your kids are out the door with the cutest little Valentines ever.
Then, of course, there's the sweet treats. Who doesn't love getting a box of chocolates or having some fun cupcakes or things like that? I know that sometimes you just want to decorate and make something feel a little special instead of just being like, here's your candy bar. So I have a few ideas for ways that you can make these fun and festive just for Valentine's Day, and it might make you have a sweet tooth by the time we're done.
So let's say you've got someone that has a bit of a sweet tooth and you want to do something a little fun for them. I've got two ideas here, and one uses that crepe paper again. So I'm going to show that one quickly first. So I've got a couple of pink donuts here, and what I wanted to do was create arrows through them so they look like Cupid's arrows. And I loved the idea of having like a really fun kind of interactive end piece. Now granted, if I were making this for other people, I'd be wearing gloves right now, but I'm not making these for other people. These will probably be mine. So what I did is I cut a strip of our crepe paper, and again, I folded it in half, did that whole thing, and then just cut my pieces. And what you're gonna do, cut two little triangles on one end, but here's the trick. You gotta push this through first and then glue on the other end. So my recommendation is to first do the crepe paper end so you can push it through the donut or the cupcake or whatever you might be doing. And then on the other end, you'll be able to glue your arrow piece on. I just think that's an easier way to do it. And you can do double-sided and have two, but you have these cute little arrows going through, because it would be really complicated to do this wraparound. So I'm just going to show you how I did it, but that one's complete. But you're just going to put a little bit of glue right here on the end. And you want the crepe paper facing away from the end. So just going to place that on. And then you literally just follow it around. So what I would do is I would just take the glue and go around it a little bit. And you just wrap it neatly around. And that's why you want to do the crepe paper end first, then slide it through the donuts, or you can make candy kebabs. You want to then slide the candy on. If you're doing candy, I would recommend skewers instead of like popsicle sticks. That way it pierces the candy easier. You can do like gummy candies, gummy lips, all that kind of stuff, and do the same thing. You can do one end with the crepe paper, and you don't have to make it as long as I have. You can also get the same effect with less crepe paper. Like if I wanted to stop right there, I would just cut off the end like that, and then you just kind of push it out with your fingers. Now that one I can't put through, but if I didn't have this portion on, I would slide it through and then glue this on, and then I've got my nice little Cupid's arrows through there, if you will, or make them into kebabs and do candy kebabs, candy arrow kebabs, we'll say. But let's say you have someone who's a chocolate fiend. I grabbed these two chocolate bars and I wrapped them in some paper, and then I used some cardstock around the edge. But then I wanted to do some kind of like fun graphic typography and just do fun little sentiments. So I used Tim Holtz's new alphanumeric emporium, and I did XOXO, love ya. You could do be mine. You could do love you. There's all kinds, and you can even do in the long length and do an even longer sentiment, like thinking of you, whatever it might be. But these are just fast, easy tricks to make something feel a little bit more festive. If you're working with food, highly recommend gloves and easy things to do, or cupcake toppers. You could still do something like that. And then if you just want to spice up the candy bars and make them look a little bit extra special for Valentine's, you can do something like this with just a nice alphabet set and use the kind of create your own sentiments if you want to, which is nice. You can customize it.
And last, but certainly not least, what about those quick cards? Things that you just can cut real quick, get them out the door. They might be for more generic, we'll say for like a coworker or a friend, things that you can just give to them that let them know that you're thinking of them and that you appreciate them, but also something that's not going to take you a ton of time to put together. Because let's face it, sometimes we don't have a lot of time to put these together. So this next little batch of cards is all about the quick and easy card gift.
So these next few ideas, I'm not going to demo anything. I just wanted to show you some quick options. When I saw Jen's Card Cafe, what I really loved about this particular die set was that it's basically a blank canvas. So she gives you the basic shape of the die, not the die, the coffee cup, and you cut that base piece is one cut. And then there's just some score lines that you fold in on. So you're not having to cut multiple pieces to make that card base. And then there's some accessory pieces in here to create the lid and a coffee sleeve and then some extra decorative panels. All of which is to say, because this is a blank canvas and you can essentially customize it for anything throughout the year. So you could make Halloween coffee cups, you can make Christmas coffee cups, you can make Easter, you can make birthday. You get to choose the pattern papers you use, the cardstock you use, the decorative embellishments that you use, and this becomes a perfect essential base for the rest of the year. So I just made some quick ones for Valentine's. You can see they're really easy to put together. I just glued those extra pieces on. I used some of our patterned paper right here in the purple with the hearts and just used these extra little pieces that come in it to make that heart piece. Same with this one. I just went with all cardstock, keep it nice and simple, just to show how quickly you can put it together. But what I think is great about these is that you could, on the back side, if you wanted to, you could attach a gift card, or you could create like an actual sleeve around it and then tuck the gift card in that. So then not only is it a card for the holiday, but it also becomes a gift holder. Now, I showed you those crazy creatures and the crazy characters a little bit earlier as kids kind of Valentines, but I did want to show them to you in not in the color palette I've been making everything, but just as small, sweet cards that you can put together quickly for any time of the year, but also at Valentine's Day. So there's the cool chick. Love those sunglasses. You don't have to use the sunglasses if you don't want to. You get those little eyeballs separately if you'd want to just use the chick. Here's that Love Ya a Latte. And these are all like mini cards. So these again are ones that you can put together fairly quickly, just a few extra pieces. You'll see that there is the essential shapes in there with the circles. So that's a great way to pull in a little bit of a background element. Or you can just cut down fun, graphic style geometric shapes and put them behind. So here's the You're Just My Type. I love writing and I have an old school typewriter, so that one's probably my favorite of all of them. Here's the Love You So Much. I love sheep. And they are called Yous, so that's really sweet. And then finally, for those soft crafters out there in your life, love you so much. And again, the use of those essential circles in the background to just create a nice pop for the element. So Valentine's cards don't have to be overly complicated. They can be really simple and allow you to make quite a few of them in a short amount of time.
And there you have it. A lot of fun, quick ideas for Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoyed the little morsels that I've given you. I certainly love making anything for any festive holiday, but there's something special for Valentine's Day. I love telling the people in my life how much I love them, and I definitely will be using a few of these ideas myself for their cards. So whether you're going super intricate, just really you want to give someone something that took you a long time to make, you could go that direction, or you want to do something just fun and simple and send it their way, or you want to go like a little bit in between, something that takes a little bit of time, but you might already have lying around and just want to use those extra pieces for. And then, of course, for my chocoholics, we all know that this will not be surviving until Valentine's Day. But if you have any questions about any of the stuff I covered, any of the products, any of the tips and tricks I might have given, please let us know in the comments and we will get back to you. I so look forward to seeing what everyone's making for Valentine's Day, and please share if what you're making with us by using the hashtag #MySizzixStory. We can't wait to see what you make. I can't wait to dig into the sweet treats. Until next time, happy making and happy early Valentine's Day.